Welcome to Asia Outlook. I'm Melody and I'm here to report the top stories from around Asia. Cyclone Mphen is said to be the strongest storm ever recorded in the Bay of Bengal. Thousands of people have been evacuated in eastern India. CGTN Ravina Bawa has more from Delhi.
It is still a dangerous intensity because it has made a landfall in West Bengal and is now headed towards the capital city, Kolkata. And what we saw in the earlier hours before the landfall, that it impacted also the state of Odisha, which is the neighbor of West Bengal in the eastern part of India. And in that state, the maximum speed of the wind was 106 kilometers per hour. And as it is heading towards West Bengal inwards towards the land, the speed is supposed to rise from 155 and gust up to 185 kilometers per hour. And the Met Department has warned that there will be a lot of damage in these areas, and that's why 41 teams of the National Disaster Response Force are on the ground. They are already taking over in certain parts of Odisha where we have seen there is uprooting of trees. The poles have been uprooted, and now these teams are actually beginning the work of clearing the roads, and that work has started in Odisha as the wind now moves and the cyclone now moves towards West Bengal, which in the next few hours will see more damage. And these preparations are on the ground. As you mentioned, 700,000 people have been evacuated in India and 2.4 million in Bangladesh and moved to cyclone centers, relief centers, shelter centers.
Chinese President Xi Jinping and other leaders mourned the lives taken during the COVID-19 pandemic on Friday. They joined deputies to the third session of the 13th National People's Congress in observing a moment of silence in tribute to those who sacrificed their lives to the fight against COVID-19 and those who lost their lives in the pandemic.
Fellow deputies, the COVID-19 epidemic is a major health emergency recognized as having spread fastest, caused the most extensive infection, and proved the hardest to contain since the founding of New China. During the hard fight against the COVID-19 epidemic, a group of medics, officials, people at the primary level, and other people danger or even sacrifice their lives. And also many patients lost their lives. Here, I would like to pay tribute and condolences to the deceased. Now let's observe a moment of silence. Please be seated.
At least 97 bodies have been found after a Pakistan International Airlines plane crashed in the southern Pakistani port city of Karachi on Friday afternoon. Media wing of the Army, the Inter-Services Public Relations on Saturday has said. According to local official, 2 survivors have been discovered as rescue operation was underway. According to a media report, a technical fault might have led to the tragedy. Hundreds of thousands of South Korean students returned to school. Educational institutions started reopening after a delay of more than 2 months due to the COVID-19 outbreak. Students lined up for temperature checks and were given sanitizers to wash their hands as they entered school premises. Let's take a look. The World Health Organization said it will facilitate an independent review into the handling of the coronavirus pandemic. The WHO Secretary General confirmed the news at the World Health Assembly's virtual conference.
Every country and every organization must examine its response and learn from its experience. I will initiate an independent evaluation at the earliest appropriate moment to review experience gained and lessons learned, and to make recommendations to improve national and global pandemic preparedness and response.
The Turkish government has announced a 4-day lockdown in major cities since last Saturday. Since the beginning of the outbreak, the country has had all-day weekend curfews in 31 cities, including Istanbul and the capital Ankara. CGTN Makalbar David reports on the current situation in Turkey as restrictions are eased.
A 4-day lockdown here in Istanbul and in 14 other provinces as we're getting ready to ease the restrictions even further. Now, on Wednesday, Turkey will open up to health tourists from 31 countries, which include countries such as Iraq, Libya, Russia, and some EU countries as well, such as Greece and Germany. Now, Turkey has been a popular medical tourism destination for quite some time now. In 2018, we accepted about nearly 1 million visitors, and they range in medical needs from oncology to radiology and cardiology as well. Now, those arriving on Wednesday will be expected to test negative for COVID-19, and they will also be tested upon arrival to Turkey. Now, patients will be transferred directly to their designated hospitals as well, and they will be expected to wear masks during their flights. Now, at the end of May, Turkey is planning to launch its first domestic tourism as well, with rules and regulations, of course, being set for hotels, providing they abide by these rules. This is going to come after the Eid holiday at the end of Ramadan. Now, meanwhile, health officials are also urging people to stay home during this period, during this month specifically, as we have partial lockdowns, because we're planning to ease restrictions even further. So it's going to be very critical to see how we continue this progress being made in Turkey to contain the virus. Now, Turkish health officials are emphasizing that progress is being made. At the peak in Turkey, which was about a month ago, the daily deaths were around 120 at that time. Now, for the past 2 days, we've had daily deaths around the low 40s. On Sunday, we had 44 people being recorded to have died due to the virus. So hopefully this progress can continue during the month, and at the end of the month, then finally we're also expecting travel restrictions to be lifted here in Istanbul as well.
The International Olympic Committee and the World Health Organization have signed a new agreement to promote a healthy society through sport. The postponement of the Tokyo Olympics continues to be a topic of concern.
If it fights with unity and global solidarity, I think we can make a difference before the next Olympic, and we hope Tokyo will be a place where humanity will gather with triumph against COVID.
Nobody can at this moment in time really give you a reliable answer on how the world will look like in July 2021.
Stay with us as we bring you more news on Asia Outlook. A wedding live broadcast was held on Wednesday for 100 Chinese couples who fight on the front lines of the battle against coronavirus, receiving wishes from witnesses, celebrity best men and bridesmaids, as well as many netizens. Let's take a look.
An online wedding ceremony for 100 couples who has worked at the front lines of the fight against COVID-19 in Wuhan. Renowned Chinese TV host Hua Xiao presided over the wedding. Joining him were some popular artists and singers. This picture of two lovers kissing through a glass once touched the hearts of millions of netizens. Chen Ying is a nurse in East China's Zhejiang province. The unexpected epidemic outbreak disrupted her original wedding plan with her fiancé Huang Qianrui. They decided to hold a wedding when the epidemic eases. Now their wish has come true, witnessed and blessed by thousands of millions of netizens.
During tough times, like when we fight an outbreak, the support of those who love us can be the most important encouragement. Because of the encouragement of those like Qianrui's fiancé or other doctors' families, medics on the front line were able to stay focused.
Professor Li Lanjuan served as the wedding witness. She's one of the most renowned epidemiologists in China, who left an indelible impression on the Chinese people during the outbreak.
From today, you will no longer fight by yourself but are accompanied by a partner who's also your comrade in arms. You embrace a new life and safeguard this cherishable relationship together. Just move forward with the development of our country. Best wishes, marriage witness, Li Lanjuan.
According to China's Health Commission, over 42,000 medical staff from across the country were sent to the epicenter Hubei province to help with epidemic control. The first batch of medical staff were from China's Air Force. They arrived in Wuhan on January 24th, eve of the Chinese New Year. The last team was from Beijing and left Wuhan on April 15th. And despite all the hardships that happened in between, they proved that love always prevails. Chen Xiaoshu, CGTN.
Chai Dicha Bute had his sights set on the 2020 Olympic Games in Tokyo before the coronavirus pandemic delayed the Games to 2021. As an elite boxer, Chai Dicha is one of the country's best chances for a medal at Olympic Games. But a year delay means his prime fighting days may be over as he struggles to maintain training to be in peak condition during lockdown.
ผมตั้งเป้าหมายไว้นะครับว่าปีนี้จะเป็นปีสุดท้ายแล้วแบบเราก็จะเต็มที่กับมันแต่พอเลื่อนออกไปเนี่ยมันก็ทำให้เราแบบท้อครับเหมือนกับเราต้องซ้อมอีกต้องพยายามอีกปีนึงอายุที่เรามากขึ้นแล้วสภาพร่างกายเราอาจจะไม่เหมือนเดิมครับผมเพราะ1 ปีนี่ถือว่าเยอะนะครับสำหรับนักกีฬาโอลิมปิกครั้งนี้เป็นครั้งสุดท้ายของผมนะครับผมก็ความคาดหวังของตัวเองในโอลิมปิกครั้งนี้ก็หวังไว้ว่าเข้ารอบลึกๆแล้วก็จะคว้าเหรียญรางวัลเหรียญใดเหรียญหนึ่งกับประเทศไทยครับผม เราไม่ได้ซ้อมกับเพื่อนร่วมทีมกับเพื่อนเนี่ยมันก็แน่นอนครับประสิทธิภาพของร่างกายเราก็จะลดลงเพราะว่าเราเข้าทำอย่างเดียวไม่มีการป้องกันตัวเพราะว่าถ้าเราซ้อมกับผู้ซ้อมเนี่ยผู้ซ้อมชกมาเรายังป้องกันตัวได้
Japan has lifted its state of emergency on 3 more prefectures as the number of new coronavirus infection drops. Officials say now it is safe to ease restrictions on Osaka, Kyoto, and Hyogo. The third world's largest economy has taken a hit from the virus containment restrictions. Other state of emergency remains in place in 5 of Japan's 47 prefectures, including Tokyo. Officials say they will discuss the possibilities lifting the state of emergency in those prefectures next week. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas declared an end to all agreements with Israel and the U.S. on Tuesday. The decision came in response to recent calls to annex parts of the West Bank by the newly sworn-in Israeli government, a plan supported by the U.S. Abbas blasted Washington for supporting what he called Israel's grave violations and war crimes, and he said Palestine would continue to pursue his claims in the International Criminal Court. Parts of the world have been locked down for weeks to combat the spread of COVID-19. Many communities have found social distancing to be a success. Now that it appears the virus is slowing, cities are starting to ease restrictions. Some business owners have found creative ways to encourage social distancing or just to make things seem more normal. An unprecedented testing campaign is underway in Wuhan, where all 11 million residents are being screened for COVID-19. Local resident Dong Yi shared his personal experience.
So today is Monday the 18th, and today's the day we're doing our testing right here in our community. So I was given just 2 tubes. They're gonna take my blood and they're gonna run some tests. So yeah. So they pull up a tent here right in our community garden. So this is our first stop. We are having our blood taken. So the whole process was about less than 10 minutes, including waiting. And we have about more than 260 households in our community, but you don't really see many people down here. That is because all of the residents, they're being put into different groups. So whenever one group is finishing, they'll call another group to come down here. So they're just going to take your blood and they're going to put a stick into your mouth. So yeah, that was that, and it was a lot faster than I thought, and was very organized.
About 18,000 coronavirus patients are in serious condition in Moscow. The capital has been the epicenter of the outbreak in Russia. The country now has a total of more than 300,000 cases. CGTN Lucy Taylor has more.
Moscow's Mayor Sergei Sobyanin says the situation is still far from ideal, and he says it's too early to talk about victory over coronavirus. But he said the city has avoided a worst-case scenario of a peak in mid-May which would have overwhelmed hospitals. Moscow has about half of Russia's confirmed cases of coronavirus, which rose above 300,000 on Wednesday. But the number of new cases each day is lower than it was at the start of the month, and the World Health Organization says the situation appears to be stabilizing. Prime Minister Mikhail Mishustin says it's time to begin lifting quarantine restrictions in some areas of the country. Moscow has been in partial lockdown since the end of March. People here are only allowed to go outside to do a limited number of essential activities. And Mayor Sobyanin says he will begin to open government offices and allow some planned treatment to go ahead now. But he says it's too early to talk about allowing outdoor walks or exercise. He says he won't consider allowing those until the number of new cases each day falls to the tens or hundreds. On Wednesday, it was more than 2,500. Lucy Taylor, CGTN, Moscow.
There are more news coming on Asia Outlook, so make sure you stick around. Authorities recently discovered a disturbing trend. Some patients who had already recovered from the coronavirus later tested positive again. South Korea has reported over 350 cases like this, while 5 to 15% of recovered patients in China fall into this category. So what's really going on? CGTN's Li Zhao explains.
Authorities recently discovered a disturbing trend. Some patients who had already recovered from the coronavirus later tested positive again. South Korea has reported over 350 cases like this, while 5 to 15% of the recovered patients here in China fall into this category. So what's really going on? Are these patients actually getting infected again? Now, first thing first, retesting positive does not mean that these recovered patients were infected again. There could be traces of the virus left over inside the patient's body, or just an inaccurate test result. Let's break this down. Reason number one, fragments of the virus remained in the patient's body. Recent data has shown that patients expel leftover materials from their lungs during the recovery phase, and these dead cells can produce positive test results. This is part of the healing process, but it does not mean that these patients have been reinfected. Reason number two, inaccurate test results. There are a number of reasons why this could happen, including issues with chemicals used in the test and the way sample was collected and stored. For example, one of the most common tests is swabbing a patient's throat. Samples are taken from the upper respiratory tract, but the virus could be hidden in the patient's lower airways, and that could cause a false result. Now, are these patients infectious then? Unfortunately, there's no concrete answer in the studies to date, but experts from both China and South Korea say there's an extremely low risk for these patients to infect others. But again, experts are still working on this topic, and quarantine measures still need to be taken for this specific kind of patients. And that's it for today. Tell me what you want to know more about in the comments. I'm Li Zhao. Thanks for watching.
No more touching in the elevators as a Thai shopping mall in Bangkok installed foot pedals for customers to step on instead of pressing the buttons, lowering the risk of having to be exposed to germs. The world is observing International Day of Biological Diversity at a time when the coronavirus pandemic has led to lockdowns in many countries. With humans indoors while animals are roaming freely on the streets and air pollution has dramatically declined. 2020 has been designated as a super year for global biodiversity, as governments were meant to agree on a target to reverse the environmental damages caused by human activities. Elizabeth Maruma, acting executive secretary of UN Convention on Biological Diversity, an organization playing a pivotal role in preparing global biodiversity target, tells us her opinion.
COVID-19 has further reaffirmed what actually we already knew, that biodiversity is fundamental for human health, and thus it has given us a new urgency on the need to protect it. We hope the likelihood of an agreement therefore is higher than actually before, now that the world understands better the need to protect the environment than we knew before. And this pandemic has shown it in clear terms, again, that international cooperation is paramount. Hopefully, one of the outcomes of this pandemic will actually be more people recognizing that the healthy planet is not only critical to our ability to rebound from the COVID-19 pandemic, but that pandemic serves as a wake-up call to fix the deteriorating relationship with nature. It is important to ensure that the economic stimulus packages really, created by countries do not hinder biodiversity, but instead guarantee the protection and restoration.
The last conversation between the Pakistani airline pilot and the air traffic controller was released, in which the pilot desperately called for help before the plane crashed into a residential neighborhood of Karachi on Friday.
While proceeding that, sir, we have lost engines. Confirm you are carrying out belly landing. Runway available to land at 25. Roger. Mayday, Pakistan 8303. Mayday, Pakistan 8303.
And that's all we have for today's Asia Outlook on MI Radio. Thank you for being with us. We'll be back next week. Until next time.